Welcome back, my cuties. Hope you are coming to Patreon. Waiting for you there, dear.
The weekend my aunt found me in pink should have been the end of my life. That's what I believed then. I can still see it if I try. My bedroom door cracked open, my hands shaking so hard I could barely pull the shirt back off, my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to get out before I got caught with it. And there I was, 23 years old, standing in front of my mirror in a soft pink top I was never supposed to touch, looking like every secret I had buried for years had finally risen all at once. But that wasn't the moment my life was ruined. It was the moment somebody finally saw me. And once that happened, I couldn't go back to pretending this was just some private weirdness that would disappear if I ignored it hard enough. This is the story of that weekend. Not because I got caught, because for the first time in my life, I got understood. I was 23 and still living at home while I finished college. The official reason was money. My parents liked telling people that. Smart, practical, good son, staying close, staying focused, saving up. But the truth was simpler. My parents liked me where they could still keep an eye on me, close enough to correct, close enough to question, close enough to hold me inside the version of myself that made sense to them. My father believed in rules so hard they might as well have been nailed into the walls. Men should act a certain way, speak a certain way, sit a certain way, know what they were doing. Never hesitate, never drift, never soften. My mother cared just as much, only in a quieter way. She worried about appearances, what people noticed, what relatives whispered, what neighbors remembered after church or family dinners. My father gave the rules their shape. My mother gave them their polish. So our house was never loud in the dramatic way people imagine when they hear strict family. It was worse than loud, it was careful. Everything in that house had edges. Dinner at the same time every night. Doors closed but never too closed. Questions asked in innocent voices that somehow still felt like traps. I got used to moving to that place like I was trying not to trip an alarm only I could hear. Most days looked exactly the same. Classes in the morning, library in the afternoon, drive home past the same gas stations, the same strip malls, the same low roads I'd known since high school. Dinner. Chores. Homework. Bed. And underneath all of it, always, there was this other thing. This softness in me I had never known what to do with. It had been there as long as I could remember. Not in one big, dramatic moment. In little ones. The women's section of a department store. A folded cardigan on a display table. Satin sleepwear. A pale nightshirt hanging on a rack. The way soft, feminine things made my chest ache like they belonged to some life that had passed me by before I even knew how to ask for it. I didn't have good words for it back then. I just knew it hurt. Laundry became my secret little torture. My mother hated folding clothes, so after a while, I started doing it. Towels, jeans, t-shirts, easy, safe, but mixed in with them were the dangerous things. A blouse with soft sleeves, a camisole I handled too carefully, one of my mother's nightshirts, warm from the dryer, smelling like detergent and fabric softener, and some version of comfort I was never supposed to imagine on my own skin. I would hold those pieces 1 second too long. Not enough for anyone to notice. Just enough to hate myself afterward. That was the shape of my life when my Aunt Melissa came to stay for the weekend. Melissa was my mother's younger sister, but they never felt like they came from the same world. My mother was tight. Melissa was open. My mother measured every word. Melissa asked direct questions and looked people in the eye when she asked them. She had lived in different places, changed jobs more than once, and carried herself with the kind of ease that made other people seem stiffer just by standing near her. She walked into our house Friday afternoon with sunglasses pushed up in her hair and an overnight bag on one shoulder, and somehow made the whole place feel smaller just by being comfortable in it. "Look at you," she said when she saw me in the kitchen. "Still too handsome for this house." I laughed because that was easier than being seen. My mother rolled her eyes. My father muttered something about flattery. Melissa just smiled at me like she already knew I was more nervous than I looked. That first night, I mostly stayed out of her way. But the next morning, my mother asked me to help with laundry while she and Melissa drank coffee in the living room. I was folding one of my mother's blouses when I heard Melissa behind me. "You always do the folding?" I jumped so hard I nearly dropped it. She was leaning against the doorway with a mug in her hand, watching me with that steady look of hers. "Sometimes," I said. "Is that so?" I folded the blouse too fast and set it down in the basket. Mom likes it done a certain way. Melissa stepped closer, looked at the basket, then at me. "You're careful with the delicate stuff." That was all she said. It should have meant nothing. But something in the way she said it made my stomach turn over. I muttered something useless and kept folding. She took a sip of coffee and walked away like she hadn't just lit a match in my chest. After that, I felt her attention all day. Nothing obvious. Nothing cruel. Just there. At lunch, she asked me about school and actually listened to my answer. Later, when my mother made a passing comment about me never bringing a girl around, I caught Melissa looking at me in a way that made my whole face go warm with panic. That night, when I bent to pick up a towel I'd dropped in the hallway, I could feel her watching from the kitchen table. Not judging, not teasing, just noticing. By Sunday morning, I had almost convinced myself I was imagining it. She was observant, that was all. Better at reading a room than anyone else in my family. Better at reading me, too, apparently. She was supposed to leave that afternoon. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt restless. After lunch, the house emptied out in pieces. My father went to the hardware store. My mother left with a neighbor to help with some church thing. Melissa said she was heading out too, maybe stopping by a market before driving home. By 3 o'clock, the house was quiet. I was upstairs at my desk, pretending to study when I got up to grab my charger, turned toward the bed, and froze. There was a folded pink top sitting right in the middle of my blanket. Not my mother's, not mine. New. Pale pink cotton with a little satin trim at the collar. Simple, feminine, soft-looking even from across the room. I stared at it without moving. My first thought was that there had to be some harmless explanation. Someone set it down in the wrong room. Melissa bought something and forgot it. I was turning it into something because guilt had trained my brain to do that. But even while I thought it, I knew better. That top had not landed on my bed by accident. I crossed the room slowly and touched it with 2 fingers. That was enough. The softness hit me like a jolt. I pulled my hand back, paced once, then twice, then sat in my desk chair and stared at my laptop without seeing a single word. The whole room felt charged now, like all the air had gathered around that one pink thing on my bed. I told myself not to touch it again. Then I locked my bedroom door. I stood there with my hand on the knob, breathing too fast, already ashamed, already knowing I was going to do it. I picked the top up with both hands. The cotton was cool at first, then warm where I held it. It smelled faintly like new clothes and something soft and clean and impossible. "This is insane," I whispered. Then I took off my t-shirt. For 1 second, I almost stopped there. Half undressed, heart pounding, chest tight, feeling like I still had time to back out and return to the version of myself everyone expected. Then I slipped the pink top over my head. The fabric settled over my shoulders, and everything inside me went quiet. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't turn me into somebody else. It was just a soft top, loose at the waist, light against my skin, pink, where my own clothes were always gray or black or blue. But the second it touched me, something in me let go. That was the part I had never allowed myself to imagine. Not excitement, relief. A terrible, aching relief so deep it almost made me dizzy. I looked down first, pink against my skin, the trim at the collar, the sleeves softer, shorter, gentler than anything I owned. My hands were shaking, my throat burned. Then I made myself look in the mirror. I had always thought that if I ever wore something feminine, I would feel ridiculous, exposed, wrong in some obvious, humiliating way. But the person staring back at me did not look ridiculous. Scared, yes. Awkward, definitely. A grown man in his childhood bedroom wearing a soft pink top over jeans, staring at himself like he had somehow stepped into the wrong life. But not wrong. Just unfinished. I stepped closer and touched the satin trim near my collarbone. My face softened without my permission. I watched tension leave my mouth, watched my shoulders drop. And that was what almost broke me, because it meant this was not just curiosity, not just fantasy, not just some private weakness I could choke off if I hated it hard enough. It meant some part of me had been starving. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed at the hem of the top, fumbling, trying to pull it off. Another step outside my door. Then a soft knock. Not my mother, not my father. "Melissa, it's just me," she said. I stopped breathing. Another knock. Opened the door. There was no good way out of it. I grabbed my t-shirt, dropped it, picked it up again, then gave up and unlocked the door with a hand that barely worked. When I opened it, Melissa took one look at me and went still. Not shocked, not amused, just still. My eyes dropped to the floor. "I'm sorry." She stepped inside and closed the door gently behind her. "You don't need to apologize to me. I know this looks weird. Does it?" That made me look up. Her face was calm. If anything, she looked sad for me. I swallowed. "I shouldn't have touched it. I know it isn't mine." "It is," she said softly. I just stared at her. She glanced at the top, then back at me. "I bought it this morning." The room tilted. "You what?" "I bought it for you." Every feeling in me turned inside out at once. Shame, fear, exposure. Relief so sharp it almost felt like anger. "So this was a test. It was an opening," she said. "You could have left it on the bed." "But I didn't." "No," she said quietly. "You didn't." My eyes filled before I could stop them. I turned away, humiliated by how fast I was falling apart. This is so embarrassing. Melissa came a little closer, but not enough to crowd me. "I don't think you're embarrassed because of the top," she said. "I think you're embarrassed because you've been carrying this alone for a long time." That was it. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed because my knees suddenly didn't feel reliable. The pink fabric bunched in my hands. I couldn't think of one lie big enough to cover what had just happened. Melissa crouched in front of me so she wouldn't tower over me. "I'm not going to tell your mother," she said. "I'm not going to shame you, but I am going to ask you one honest question." I nodded because I couldn't speak. "How long have you wanted this?" I looked down at my hands and I told the truth. "Since I was little." The words came out rough and broken. After that, I couldn't seem to stop them. I told her about noticing dresses in store windows when I was a kid, about folding my mother's laundry and feeling pathetic for caring how soft it was, about how I kept thinking it would go away if I got older, tougher, more normal, about how I had never actually worn anything before, not really, and how scared I was by how right this felt. Melissa listened without interrupting. When I was done, she sat beside me on the bed, leaving a little space between us. "There's nothing wrong with wanting softness," she said. "There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel like yourself. I don't even know what that means. You don't have to know yet." Her voice was so calm it almost hurt to hear it. Then she said, "Come stay with me for a while." I turned toward her. "What?" "My place is closer to campus. Your mother will believe that. You need room to think, and you're not going to get it here." I stared at her, barely keeping up. "You're serious?" "Yes. Why?" She held my gaze. "Because this house is choking you, and whatever this is, it deserves room." I looked at the door, then the mirror, then back at her. It would mean nothing happens that you don't want," she said. "I'm not deciding your life for you. I'm offering you somewhere to breathe." No one had ever spoken to me like that. Not about the real parts of me. By dinner, the cover story was already being built. Melissa mentioned casually that my campus schedule would be easier from her side of town. My father grunted that maybe I'd finally focus. My mother hesitated, but Melissa knew exactly how to make something sound practical. The next afternoon, my duffel bags were in Melissa's trunk. My mother hugged me and told me not to waste the opportunity. My father told me not to get lazy. I nodded at both of them like a good son heading somewhere sensible. Only Melissa and I knew I was leaving for something else. Not freedom, not yet. Just a doorway. Melissa's house was small and a little messy in a comforting way. Books on side tables, a throw blanket on the couch, warm light in the kitchen at night. Nothing looked arranged for judgment. Nothing felt like it was waiting to be inspected. The first 2 days, she gave me space. I went to class, came back, sat in the guest room with the door closed, and replayed that moment in my bedroom over and over. The pink top, the mirror, the relief. On the third night, she knocked and handed me a paper bag. Inside was a soft gray sleeve shirt and a pair of pale lounge shorts. "You don't have to wear them," she said, "but they're yours." Mine. That word almost undid me all over again. That night, after she went to bed, I changed slowly in the guest room and stood in front of the mirror. Still awkward, still nervous, still obviously me, but softer, less guarded. I sat on the bed in those clothes for almost an hour, just breathing. No panic, no footsteps outside the door, no rush to hide. After that, little things started changing. A better razor appeared in the bathroom drawer. Moisturizer showed up on the sink. A cardigan landed on the couch one night, with Melissa saying, without looking up from her book, "Too small for me now." I took it to my room like it was made of permission. She never made a speech about any of it. Just little openings. Don't scrub your face that hard. You don't have to walk like somebody's about to yell at you. Sit down. Relax your shoulders. A week later, I shaved my legs. I did it in the shower with my heart pounding like I was doing something criminal. But when I stepped out, dried off, and ran my hand over smooth skin, I had to sit down for a minute because the feeling hit me so hard. That night at dinner, Melissa glanced at me once and asked, very casually, "How do you feel?" I looked down at my plate. "Lighter," I said. She nodded like that made perfect sense. And for the first time in my life, it did. But then something deeper started happening. It stopped being only about the clothes. I began to dread changing back before class. I hurried home afterward just to get out of boy clothes and into softness again. My posture shifted in private. My voice softened when I wasn't scared. I started to see how much of my old life had just been tension held in place. One evening, Melissa found me in front of the mirror trying to brush my hair into something softer around my face. I saw her in the reflection and flushed. "Sorry." "For what?" "I don't know." Looking stupid. She leaned against the doorway and studied me for a second. Then she asked, very carefully, "Is this still just about clothes?" The question hung in the room. I set the brush down. "I don't know," I said. She nodded once. "Okay." That should have ended it, but it didn't. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, trying to separate everything I had spent years knotting together. Comfort, shame, relief, fear, longing, recognition. The clothes had been the doorway because they were visible. But what was underneath them was bigger. The next afternoon, I found Melissa in the kitchen and said it before I could stop myself. "What if it's more?" She set down the knife in her hand and turned fully toward me. "What if I'm not just—" I couldn't finish. She pulled out a chair. "Come sit." I sat. "So," she said gently, "then maybe it's more." "You make that sound easy." "No," she said. "I make it sound survivable." That line stayed with me. A week later, she drove me to a counselor's office. The waiting room was beige and cold, and so ordinary it almost made it worse. My hands shook while I filled out the intake form. Under reason for visit, I wrote, "Questions about identity." In the session, I heard myself say things I had never said out loud before. That feminine clothes didn't make me feel thrilled so much as calm. That taking them off made me feel grief, not guilt. That I didn't know what label fit me yet, but I knew pretending was getting harder. The counselor didn't rush me, didn't dramatize me, just asked careful questions and let the truth show up however it needed to. Over the next few weeks, those sessions continued. The conversation slowly shifted toward what I wanted, not just what I feared. Whether this was expression, identity, transition, some mix of things I still didn't have perfect language for. The hormone conversation came later with a doctor, slow, careful, real, not magic, not fantasy, choice, consequence, patience, patience, When we got back to Melissa's house after that first appointment, I stood in the guest room for a long time. Then I said, I think I want to keep going. Melissa looked at me and asked only one thing. Because. I took a breath. Because every step closer to this has made me feel more alive. She nodded like that answer mattered. And it did. By the second month, most of the changes were still small. Softer skin, softer clothes, a little less fear in the mirror, a little more honesty in the way I moved through the house. Melissa stopped guessing what I wanted and started giving me room to name it myself. One Saturday afternoon, she adjusted the collar of a pale blue top I had picked out on my own and said, almost under her breath, "There, pretty." I froze. Not because of the word itself, because of how right it felt to hear it. Later that same night, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I answered, trying to sound normal. She asked about classes, asked whether I was eating enough, asked whether Melissa was keeping me focused. Then, in that too casual tone mothers use right before they ruin your peace, she said, "I was thinking maybe I'd come by next weekend." Everything in me locked. I looked across the room. On the dresser sat skincare bottles, a brush, a folded cardigan, a life that still only felt safe inside this house. Melissa was standing in the doorway, watching my face. "To Melissa's?" I asked. "Yes. Why not? I haven't seen you in weeks." My mouth went dry. "No," I said, "that's not a problem." But it was. After the call ended, I lowered the phone slowly. "When?" Melissa asked. "Next weekend." She nodded once, already thinking. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding, but not the way it had that first day in pink. This fear felt different, because I wasn't the same person anymore. That was the problem. Now there was more to lose. I looked up at Melissa, and the truth came out before I could hide from it. I can't go back to how I was. She came over and sat beside me, calm as ever. "I know," she said. Outside, the street was going dark. Tree branches moved in the evening wind. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and then went quiet. Inside that room, surrounded by soft clothes and a life I had only just started to touch with both hands, I understood something with a clarity that scared me. The weekend my aunt found me in pink had not ruined my life. It had ruined my ability to keep living the old one. And for the first time, I was going to have to decide what I was willing to protect. From my mother. From my fear. Maybe even from myself.